Hey, everybody. It is Wednesday, August 27th. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Moshe Wanunu.
And I am Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to in these final days of August here, Jill. I guess it's appropriate, given it was one of her hits, that the engagement was announced in August.
August slipped away like a moment in time. Yes, Moshe, in case anyone hasn't heard, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce announced their engagement. We'll have the whole scoop, everything we know about it coming up.
Yeah, so a bit of good news as we report, everything that's going on. Also a bit of good news, SpaceX was able to launch as a reusable rocket after a couple canceled launches in recent days happening late Tuesday. This is important because this rocket is being used for a variety of things, including getting humans back to the moon and then eventually to Mars. So look out for that video over on our Instagram page. And speaking of Instagram, we should tell you that we will be continuing our day-to-day coverage there on Instagram over the next couple of days. But starting Thursday, late in the day, we will head over for the long holiday weekend over to our premium page. That is where we normally do weekend coverage. This weekend, it'll be about 5 days of coverage. So if you need your coverage, if you need your deep dives, if you need your fun, we do a lot of fun things over on the premium page. Well, it's time to join Mo News Premium, and we're going to try to help you with that by offering a special discount that is available now. It is a code that felt right for Labor Day weekend, which is WORKIT, 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 for 15% off annual premium memberships, one of our better deals of the year. WORKIT, of course, a throwback to Missy Elliott. I wanted to go with the Britney Spears work-related song, but that felt a bit inappropriate for a code. For those of you familiar with the Britney working-related song,
which uses the word for a female dog.
It rhymes with witch. Anyway, the point is we're going with WORKIT. WORKIT gives you 50% off premium over at mo.news/premium. And you should join today because we have a new product coming your way. It's the new Ask Moshe Anything podcast, AMA, launching just after Labor Day. So yet another perk to joining our premium page, in addition to getting your news coverage, getting your news fix starting on Thursday.
Okay, now to the headlines. Are you ready for it? Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce announcing their engagement, what we know, what we don't know, and all of the Taylor Swift puns.
Jill had fun writing this one.
Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook firing back to keep her job after President Trump said he is firing her over alleged mortgage fraud.
Yeah, we will tell you about the back and forth, and it's likely to end up in the Supreme Court.
In business news, that was quick. Cracker Barrel says it's going back to its original logo.
One of the few things America could unite on, right and left, is everyone thought it sucked, the new logo. Cracker Barrel backtracking pretty quickly. We'll give you the backstory.
Overseas, Australia says Iran was behind anti-Semitic arson attacks on its soil. What we know about it.
And the latest from the Middle East on that Israeli strike on a hospital that killed several journalists. What the Israelis say was being done at that hospital based on their initial investigation.
Back here in the U.S., just as classes are starting on college campuses across the country, a rash of active shooter hoaxes.
Yeah, this has been happening across the country. We've been getting messages from a number of you, including a number of parents whose kids are at schools across the country. We'll tell you what we know so far and what we don't.
And a towering dust storm known as a Haboob plunges Phoenix into darkness. Haboob, spelled kind of like you think it would be.
Yes, Jill, the word's actually Arabic for strong wind or furious wind. We'll tell you what was going on in the Southwest.
And Moshe has on this day in history.
One of the iconic films from many of our childhoods made its premiere on this day in history. And it only came about after Walt Disney had to wait for the star actress he wanted in it to give birth. We'll give you the backstory.
Okay, starting with some good news for once. It's a love story, and Taylor Swift said yes. The world's biggest power couple has made it official. Pop star Taylor Swift and football player Travis Kelce are engaged. The couple announced the news on Instagram, writing, quote, "Your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married." There was a dynamite emoji and a snippet of Swift's song So High School, which was long thought to be about Kelce.
So interesting, Jill, that she went with English teacher to describe herself as opposed to, say, music teacher.
Well, she always says that she is a songwriter first before she is a singer.
Then that makes sense.
So along with the caption were 5 photos. The first shows Kelce down on one knee in front of Swift. There's another photo that shows Swift sporting a very large ring. It is an old mine, brilliant cut sparkler, co-designed by jeweler Kindred Lebec of Artifacts Fine. And Kelce himself apparently played a role. It is possible that the engagement announcement will become the most liked Instagram post of all time. As of this recording, it has about 20 million likes. Lionel Messi is currently in first place. There was a post that has 74.5 million. So we shall see. And this comes just a few weeks after Swift appeared on Kelce's New Heights podcast, which he hosts with his brother Jason. She was announcing her next album, The Life of a Showgirl. That interview giving a ton of rare insight into their relationship. Moshe, not going to lie, they were very cute.
Right, especially given there's all the skeptics out there, Jill, that, well, the people who've gone to the extreme, they were a couple put together by the CIA to convince us to take the COVID vaccine was among the theories out there. No, but if you listen to the 2 hours of them on the podcast, they seem like they genuinely really are obsessed with each other.
Now, there is another theory, though, that they were already engaged at the time of the podcast.
And Jill, late on Tuesday night, we effectively got confirmation of that from, of all people, Travis's father, Ed Kelce, who apparently decided to do a few interviews about the proposal. He did one with News 5 Cleveland, his local station there in Ohio. He also did one with the Australian Today Show, the morning show down in Australia. And so we got a few details, including the fact that the proposal actually took place, according to Ed, on Sunday, August 10th. So just over 2 weeks ago. The question, of course, was that podcast that she did with the brothers recorded before or after? It definitely was released after the proposal. Not clear, though, whether it was recorded after the proposal. Nonetheless, what we learned from Ed Kelce is the engagement took place just over 2 weeks ago at Travis's home. Here's a bit of what Ed told News 5 Cleveland on Tuesday night.
He was going to put it off till this week. I think she was getting maybe a little antsy, but he was going to put it off till this week to, make some grand thing to make it a big special event. And I told him repeatedly, you could do it on the side of the road, do it any place. That makes it a special event when you get down on one knee and ask her to marry you. And it helped that Scott Swift was telling him the same thing. He made a floral garden around a gazebo in the place where it is in Lee Summit now. Got her out there. So she got to dinner. He said, let's go out and have a glass of wine. And she got out there, and they got out there, and that's when he asked her, and it was beautiful.
All right, so a lot there, including questions as to whether Ed Kelce has permission to do these interviews. I imagine Taylor Swift's publicist, Tree Payne, has thoughts on these interviews. Maybe she said go ahead with it. Maybe he didn't ask permission. I imagine we will find out in the coming days. But nonetheless, describing in that clip, Taylor getting antsy about an announcement and a push by both Scott Swift, Taylor's father, and Ed Kelce telling Travis, just pop the question already. You don't need to overthink this. And of course, learn the details of those photos we saw on Instagram were shot in the backyard at that proposal. Interesting timing, though. It appears the rollout here was the new album and what we learned over the last couple of weeks. And then the engagement here, Travis's father saying in a couple of the interviews that when he asked Travis when they were going to reveal to the world they were engaged, Travis said, whenever Taylor wants to. It really is a remarkable thing, Jill, because 2024 was really a year for Taylor, right? With the Eras tour, she dominated the headlines. She's sort of been relatively low-key, even by Taylor Swift standards, in 2025. And now she's really coming in with a fury here with the album news, with the engagement news. There is a lot of speculation right now that she will be the Super Bowl halftime performer this upcoming season. And of course, you can imagine with the new album that there might be a tour here in the future, depending on when the big wedding is. It's really being described right now, Jill, as the sort of American equivalent of a royal wedding. Will there be live coverage of it? Will it be a private event? How will she approach it? Of course, the most recent prominent wedding was the Jeff Bezos wedding, the second richest man in the world, getting married to Lauren Sanchez in Venice. They flew in all these celebs where you saw a bit of them arriving in Venice, but didn't see the wedding itself. So very curious how Taylor's going to approach this wedding.
Well, the big difference, of course, is that people actually like Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
Right. It's not some out of touch or a billionaire that people perceive as out of touch, renting out a tourist town. Given how thoughtful and strategic she typically is about things, very curious about how she approaches this, given how long she's been waiting for it and singing about this.
Right. So we were mentioning that Taylor just announced her newest album on Travis Kelce's New Heights podcast. That actually broke a Guinness World Record because 1.3 million people tuned in simultaneously when it was released. And it's pretty fitting because the podcast actually helped launch their relationship. Back in 2023, Kelce went to one of Swift's concerts on her Eras tour. He tried to meet her, give her a friendship bracelet that he had made for her. Her security didn't let him in.
Yeah, he just presumed because he's a Kansas City Chiefs player and she was performing at Arrowhead Stadium because he knew the elevator lady who runs the elevator, that he could just roll into the stadium and be like, I have something to drop off for Taylor Swift. Apparently that doesn't work. And so his initial plan to express his desire to date her didn't work out.
Right. So he talked about it on the podcast, and that got Swift's attention and eventually led to them actually meeting. And she talked about this on her appearance on the podcast a couple weeks ago. She said, basically, there was a chance he was a total psycho because that isn't the most normal thing to do. But there's also a chance that he's not. And in that case, she said this was actually the type of romantic gesture that she had been writing about since she was a teenager, like an 80s John Hughes movie.
Yeah, so it turns out it was the latter for them. Little background, Kelce is a 3-time Super Bowl champion, a star in his own right, Jill, career earnings of more than $100 million, which is pretty impressive until you take into account that Taylor Swift net worth right now is $1.6 billion. And continues to go up here. So they are a remarkable couple in so many ways. She's been a near constant presence at his games. Of course, you can't go Kansas City Chiefs game watching it without seeing her, up in the booth several times as they show her. I know that there's actually been bets related to how many times they're going to show her during this game. And you can actually wager on it. So she has given a big bump to ticket sales. She has been cited as giving a bump to viewership as well, getting a bunch of her fans into football. And so there's a whole other season ahead as we head into another NFL season. As for when the wedding will happen, where the wedding will happen, we don't know much yet, but they are getting congratulatory notes from pretty much everyone in the world. Jill, the NFL official account, a whole number of athletes, Taylor Swift fans, a whole variety of folks chiming in, including President Trump. And we should note President Trump has been pretty critical and said some pretty insulting things about Taylor Swift, especially in 2024 when Taylor endorsed Kamala Harris over him. He literally wrote in all caps last year, I hate Taylor Swift. He claimed she was no longer hot. He said a variety of things.
Totally
He's ridiculed her. He said Taylor Swift got booed when she was seen on the stadium and mocked it. So anyway, as Trump was holding a 3.5-hour cabinet meeting yesterday on camera, Jill, I was watching this. We had it live up on our YouTube page. Well, inevitably, during that 3.5-hour cabinet meeting where he's talking and all the cabinet secretaries are talking, they're taking questions from the media, that's when the news broke. So one journalist decided to cut in there being like, I have a serious question for you, but I need you, Mr. President, to react to the news that has happened while we've been waiting here on the engagement. And given the history, we were all curious as to what he was going to say. And so this is what he said.
I think he's a great player. I think he's a great guy. And I think that she's a terrific person. So I wish them a lot of luck.
So, Jill, some kind words there. Maybe some people around him. Maybe he's just having a very good day. But he called her a terrific person. He says Travis is a great guy. And he wishes them a lot of luck. Now, Jill, we've made a point of trying to go back to our 2025 predictions podcast. At the end of last year, we did a predictions of the year podcast. And one of the questions that came up is, how will the Travis-Taylor Swift romance go? So if anyone is curious as to whether you should ask Jill to pick your Powerball numbers in the future, this is what she had to say about what would happen with Taylor and Travis this year.
One of the biggest couples in entertainment, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, will they be engaged? Will she be pregnant? Or will they be donezo?
I don't know. Let's have you start, Swifty. What do you think is going to happen with them in 2025?
Moshe, dare I say, I think wedding bells could be in their future. I'm totally buying into this relationship.
The Eras tour is over, and you think that allows them to double down, get a house in the suburbs, get married.
I don't think Travis Kelce is breaking up with Taylor Swift. I think that he is holding on to this relationship. I buy into it. Maybe I'm naive. I know people think it's for show. I don't really see why they would be putting on this charade for as long as they have. I think the benefits don't outweigh
they generally like each other. But all right, so you are going with they're getting engaged in 25.
Yes. And if not engaged, I think they are still together in 2025.
Will we have a TV royal wedding style, like Travis and Taylor get married in 25?
I don't think so. I hope not, for her sake and his sake. I hope that if they do get engaged and get married, I don't think they're going to get married in 2025. Okay. I think that perhaps they would get married in 2026, but I don't think that they're going to do it for the cameras.
All right. So for the sake of next year's podcast where we go through these predictions, I will now take the opposite prediction. They break up in 2025. It inspires at least 3 new number 1 songs by Taylor Swift.
So, Moshe, we'll go to you for history and politics and me for Taylor Swift.
For the record, as everyone heard there, I didn't really believe my prediction. I was going to just take the opposite for the sake of not agreeing on everything in the predictions podcast. But yes, that was actually very precise, folks, right? She says there will be an engagement in 25, and I asked about a wedding, and Jill said, I don't think the wedding's happening this year.
I could be wrong, though. We'll see.
You could be wrong, but on that prediction, you were right, so congrats.
So I was curious what the betting markets have to say about all of this. One bet that's happening right now, who is going to be in the couple's bridal party? So basically, who's going to be best man and maid of honor? Kelce's big brother, Jason, is by far the favorite to be the...
Take that to the bank. Put $1 million on that bet.
As for Taylor Swift, she has a lot of longtime friends, some famous, some not famous. One is Abigail Anderson, another Martha Hunt. Those are just her longtime friends. And then you've got famous friends like Selena Gomez. All of them apparently have similar odds. As for where the ceremony will take place, Tennessee is the favorite. Behind that, you've got Kansas City and then Los Angeles. And July 4th, 2026 is basically the before or after betting date for the wedding. So, Moshe, what are you going to go with?
I'm going with after July 4th. I think they need some time to plan this thing. I do think later in the summer next year, but of course he's a football player, so you don't want to go too close to football season, training season. So now I'm sort of... so now I'm sort of hedging. Now I'm going to stick with after July 4th. But I've been wrong so far on the Taylor Swift predictions on this podcast. So, Jill, I'll defer to you on this one.
I don't know. Is she pregnant? Does she want to have a baby soon?
What? You're going to go with the pregnancy free wedding
that
prediction?
At the end of the story.
That's I don't know what the wagering is on that, but if you believe
I don't
in
think
that,
anyone's talking about that.
You might make some money.
Okay, now let's get to some other news, a bit more serious, Moshe.
All right, Jill, back to reality.
Okay, a follow-up on a story we mentioned yesterday. For the first time ever, a president has fired a member of the Federal Reserve. President Trump, late Monday night, releasing a letter announcing his decision to fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook over allegations of mortgage fraud. On Tuesday, though, Cook saying she has done nothing wrong. She says she's not going to resign, and she's actually going to file a lawsuit to block the move. The case is expected to go to federal court. It could ultimately make its way to the Supreme Court, which has repeatedly sided with the Trump administration when it comes to firing independent leadership at various government agencies. Moshe, again, this is unprecedented. Typically, presidents take a hands-off approach to the Federal Reserve, which tries to maintain its independence and stay out of day-to-day politics as it sets economic policies. And part of the Fed's credibility is in its independence. But President Trump does not seem to care. He has threatened to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell, as he's also been pressuring him to cut interest rates. It's something that Powell has, to this point, resisted, concerned about how the new tariffs will impact inflation, although Powell has hinted that a rate cut could come at the Fed's September meeting.
Yeah, Jill, when you look at the first 7 months of the Trump presidency here, there have been 2 major checks on President Trump's power. One from the legal system, the other from the financial system, right? So on tariffs, the global financial system and the bond market decided he went too far in April, basically collapsed, leading him to reset those policies. And then separate from that, there have been hundreds of lawsuits, right, that have gone through the court system, to some all the way up through the Supreme Court already. But ultimately, a lot of his moves here have been playing out in the courtroom, especially since Congress is run by Republicans and not really serving as a check on his power. So ultimately, it's the financial system and the legal system. And in this case, we're going to be looking at both, right? Number one, how seriously do the markets take what he's doing here with the Federal Reserve? Do they feel that he's going to try to manipulate things, that he's going to really cut into what the Fed has done for years, which is look out for the long-term health of the economy and not the short-term political health of the political party in charge? And if they start to think that Trump is really starting to mess around with the Fed and its makeup, you might see that play out in the stock market and the various financial markets. Separately, you mentioned here Lisa Cook has also filed suit. And this is going to be a case that tests the president's power, the executive power, over these independent agencies, in this case, the Federal Reserve, and what constitutes his power to remove people from the Federal Reserve. If he's successful here, he'll have a chance to install another one of his own picks on the 7-member Federal Reserve Board. And the most famous thing these people do is that they vote every couple months on whether to raise, hold, or lower interest rates. They're constantly, obsessing over the state of the economy, the job market, inflation, and trying to make decisions that will best ensure the economic health of the country. Now, as for Cook, she was just appointed during Biden. She's just beginning her 14-year term. It's a 14-year term on the Fed. She's set to serve until 2038. Now, the current Fed makeup, I mentioned there's 7 members. There are 3 Democratic-appointed members right now and 3 Republican-appointed members and 1 open seat. So right away, he gets to fill that open seat. And if he's successful in taking out Cook, that means he has 2 immediate nominations. So now 5 of the 7 will be appointed by Republicans. And then add to that, Jerome Powell, the chair, technically was appointed by Trump, but he's fallen out of favor with Trump. He'll get to replace him next May. His pressure campaign to try to push Powell out has not been effective yet, and he's been told in certain terms by people high up in the financial world, don't do it. It's not worth it. Now, what will he do with those nominations? Well, they have to go through a process in the Senate, and that's also where the markets will weigh in here. There are a number of people he's looking at. He's got to take the Fed very seriously because the markets take it seriously because they make very important decisions. So this is a case where he can't just put in people who are true loyalists without actual experience. And so people are going to watch very closely what happens there. But it appears he has the open seat, but the Cook seat here where he's trying to fire her, she's fighting back hard. She's already filed that suit. And so we'll see how this storyline plays out.
Regarding Cook, she is an economist. She's the first Black woman ever to serve on the Fed board. As you said, she was just appointed to a 14-year term in 2022 by then President Biden. Trump claims that he can remove her for cause, accusing Cook of mortgage fraud in 2021, alleging she claimed both a Michigan home in Ann Arbor and also an Atlanta condo as her primary residence.
Now, we should note this is merely an allegation. This is merely an accusation. She's not charged with anything. In fact, as of Tuesday afternoon, the Department of Justice hasn't even begun an investigation into her. It is merely an accusation, which is why she's saying, you can't just fire me just because you accused me of something. This has not been adjudicated. I've not been charged with anything. And so I'm staying put here. Now, under the law, under the Federal Reserve Act, governors can only be removed for a cause, meaning actual wrongdoing like malfeasance or dereliction of duty. So this case will boil down to, what is the definition of that? What is the definition of actual wrongdoing? And is the accusation sufficient here? Now, Cook responding that no cause exists under the law. Again, she's not been charged with a crime. And it comes as mortgage fraud accusations appear to be a new political weapon here that the Trump administration is utilizing to try to push back on political opponents. It's not just Lisa Cook at the Fed. It is a New York Attorney General, Letitia James. She obviously filed a number of cases against Trump and made his life very challenging over the course of the past few years, as well as California Senator Adam Schiff, another Democrat. So in the case of Schiff, James, and now Cook, they're saying that all 3 are engaged in mortgage fraud related to their primary residence. Now, these cases are often more political than legal. They're almost never prosecuted mortgage occupancy fraud. It happens, but they don't typically prosecute it. We should note there are similar allegations against Republicans, including at the state level in Texas. The Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who's actually running for Senate, there is actually accused of it himself with his several homes down there. So this is a case we'll watch, but a little background for you as you watch this play out.
Time for the speed read, starting with some business news from USA Today. An about face from Cracker Barrel, which announced on Tuesday that it is dropping its much criticized new logo and returning to the old timer.
Our long national nightmare is over, Jill.
Uncle Herschel's back. In a statement, Cracker Barrel saying, quote, "We thank our guests for sharing your voices and love for Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old timer will remain." As we reported, the restaurant chain and country store unveiled a new simplified logo with the launch of a fall menu campaign on August 19th. Execs had said the enhanced brand look was intended to modernize the company's brand. The intent includes moving its restaurants away from nostalgia-rich decor to something more contemporary and less cluttered.
Yeah, Cracker Barrel's had an issue. We discussed it earlier this week on the podcast. The stock is down more than 2/3 over the last couple of years. They've been losing market share. They don't appeal to young people, and they needed to make changes. And so they thought, like you often see with major corporations, that they got to change their look. They got to clean things up. They got to have a more chic look. Well, that didn't work out for them, as we have watched this unfold over the last week, less than a week at this point. The change drew sharp criticism from customers, from politicians, many on the right saying getting rid of the old man. By the way, if you asked 99% of Cracker Barrel customers before this weekend what the name of the random man in the logo was, they could not tell you. We have since found out that his name is Uncle Herschel. I was talking to Ren, who works with us at Mo News, and she grew up in Alabama, and she's talking about going to Cracker Barrel, and she's like, I had no idea that guy that there was a name for this guy, Uncle Herschel, with the barrel, wearing the overalls, sitting on the log. Well, anyway, they got rid of it. A lot of folks on the right decided that there was something woke about it, that they were doing it for liberals. There was talk of boycotting it. Already, you saw President Trump in that aforementioned 3.5-hour cabinet meeting yesterday. Among the questions he got was about Cracker Barrel. He criticized the move. And Jill, in a rare situation, this is one of the few topics that both President Trump and Democrats agreed on, because Democrats on the DNC Twitter account, the official Democrats X account, said, "We think the Cracker Barrel rebrand sucks too." So Democrats, that was the quote from Democrats. So Democrats and Trump agree on it. Probably not surprising them that a few hours later, the company was like, yeah, we're going to go back to the old logo. And over on Instagram, Cracker Barrel said in a statement, "We could have done a better job sharing who we are and who we'll always be." Uncle Herschel, everybody. He's not going anywhere.
Hashtag Uncle Herschel forever.
But now they've spent God knows how many millions of dollars on a rebrand they won't be using, and they still have a stock that is in the toilet based on the last couple of years, and got to figure out what to do.
They did get a ton of publicity, though. So it's not money not well spent.
Right. I'm sure there's conspiracy theories being like, this whole thing was intentional. This whole thing was...
We should launch a horrific logo, see what happens, let there be tons of backlash, and we'll be like, okay, we listened to our audience. We made a mistake.
It's about you. This whole process was about learning more about you and the audience. Though I will say that I've seen a few people online who are like, I have a tip for Cracker Barrel. How about you get some healthier items on the menu, and maybe you'll be able to expand your audience that way.
All right, heading overseas from the New York Times, Australia accused Iran on Tuesday of directing arson attacks on a Jewish business and a synagogue in Australia last year, and said that it was severing diplomatic ties with the country and expelling its diplomats. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, said, quote, "These were extraordinary and dangerous acts of aggression orchestrated by a foreign nation on Australian soil. They were attempts to undermine social cohesion and sow discord in our community." There have been a spate of violent attacks on Jewish businesses and institutions. It started late last year and has unnerved many people in Australia, which actually has the highest concentration of Holocaust survivors outside of Israel. Australian officials say the extraordinary decision to publicly hold Iran responsible for some of the attacks and to cut diplomatic relations was not reached quickly or taken lightly. Australian security agencies have concluded that Iran was behind the arson attacks on a decades-old kosher restaurant called Lewis's Continental Kitchen in Sydney in October, and also the Adass Israel Synagogue in Melbourne 2 months later. No one was injured in the attacks, but officials say they were meant to tear at Australia's social fabric.
This was major news in Australia, Jill, front page news. The Australian government has not expelled a foreign diplomat since World War II. And again, there's this belief that it wasn't just these two incidents, but they believe Iran was engaged in other recent anti-Semitic attacks that have happened across the country over the course of the past couple of years. The head of Australia's intelligence said that a months-long investigation uncovered the links between the attacks and Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, that is the group that effectively sponsors, trains, and weaponizes terrorist groups around the world. Australia will now designate the IRGC as a terrorist group as well. The U.S. already considers the IRGC a terrorist group, along with other countries around the world. And there have been a number of attacks in Australia on Jewish targets, whether they be restaurants, daycare facilities, and others. Iran says it will respond in some way, so we'll continue to watch that. But we did hear from a number of Australians on our Instagram page that this helped explain some of what has been going on in that country over the last couple of years.
Now to the Middle East. From CBS News, Israel's military issued a statement Tuesday saying that its preliminary investigation into a strike the previous day that killed at least 20 people, including 5 journalists, at the Nasser hospital in southern Gaza had targeted a camera that it said was being used by Hamas for surveillance. The IDF said that troops in Han Yunis identified a camera, quote, being used to observe the activity of IDF troops in order to direct terrorist activities against them. The IDF says it was further supported by intelligence that confirmed Hamas uses the Nasser hospital to carry out terrorist activities and has been doing so since the start of the war. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had already issued a statement a few hours after the incident expressing regret for what he had called a tragic mishap. The journalists worked for Reuters, Al Jazeera, as well as the Associated Press. The strike was among the deadliest of several that have hit hospitals and journalists over the course of the 22-month war in Gaza. And it came as Israel is planning to widen its offensive to Gaza City, which is still heavily populated and the biggest city in Gaza.
Notable about this is the Israeli quick apology and acknowledgement that the attack shouldn't have happened the way it did. They continue to investigate this and why there was not one but 2 rounds of attacks on this alleged camera and why they went after it with these huge shells that killed a number of innocent civilians here. You've seen a number of organizations and countries express outrage and call for an investigation here. The Foreign Press Association, which represents journalists working in Israel and the Palestinian territories, saying it was outraged and in shock over the killing here that included several journalists. In some previous cases where journalists were killed, the Israelis said these are journalists that work for Hamas television or had connections to various groups. We should mention that the Israelis say that a handful of individuals linked to Hamas and Islamic Jihad were killed in this attack, including one of the journalists who, it appears, accompanied Hamas as they broke through into Israel on October 7th, celebrated the attacks, and so they claimed he had a connection to the terror group there. But still a number of unanswered questions here. And these types of incidents leading to criticism over at the White House. You saw Trump saying on Monday he was not happy with what was going on there. And it does come as there are large negotiations about a ceasefire, protests in Israel that have been pretty large over the weekend, as well as on Tuesday, where there was a national strike, thousands of people shutting off highways in Israel, some related to hostage families or some hostage families saying, strike a deal already. Hamas has agreed to a temporary ceasefire and a partial deal. The Israelis of late have said, at least the Israeli government has said, no, we will only sign a deal now that releases all the remaining 50 hostages, including 20 of them who are still believed to be alive. And so those conversations continue.
Back here in the U.S., just as universities across the country start the school year, many are experiencing a wave of false active shooter calls to police. They're also known as swatting calls. and they have forced frightened students and faculty to evacuate campuses or take shelter. School shooting hoaxes, either confirmed to be hoaxes by the police or incidents where simply no gunman was found, occurred at least 6 universities on Monday alone: the University of Arkansas, University of Colorado Boulder, Iowa State University, Kansas State University, the University of New Hampshire, and Northern Arizona University. False reporting of shooting incidents also happened late last week at Villanova University, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga.
All right, you mentioned it's called swatting here. It occurs when someone makes a false call to police about a violent incident with the intention of provoking an intense response from authorities, such as the SWAT team, hence swatting. Oftentimes, perpetrators will use burner phones or apps to disguise their voices, run them through various software that makes it very hard for authorities to later track down who made the call. Now, swatting drains police resources, can distract from real emergencies, and it's a major issue in recent years. The numbers have really climbed. Back in 2011, there were about 400 swatting incidents in the U.S. By 2019, that number had grown to 1,000. Now, the numbers are hard to track. They don't have a comprehensive tracking system, but the issues have grown. And just in the past week with all these universities, we see this issue. It's not just universities. It's elementary schools, high schools, places of worship, hospitals, a variety of locations. Last year, a California teen pleaded guilty in one case to carrying out hundreds of swatting calls, including to Black colleges and a Florida mosque. As far as these incidents so far, Jill, it's unclear whether they're related or completely isolated with copycats. We're going to have to wait for more.
And finally, from the Washington Post, a massive dust storm swept through Phoenix and other parts of Arizona this week, casting an apocalyptic pall over the region as the towering wall sank the city into darkness and caused heavy rain and lightning. If it sounds like I'm being dramatic, I am not. The pictures, Moshe, were insane.
Jill, I was set to go to bed Monday night, but when I saw the pictures out of Phoenix, I was like, I got to stay up and cut some video for the Instagram people out there.
Right, so this is called a Haboob, Haboob. It is an intense, fast-moving wall of dust kicked up by thunderstorm winds. In this case, the Haboob hit Arizona during the evening commute. The National Weather Service urged drivers to pull aside and stay alive as visibility shrank to as little as 50 feet. The Haboob was the result of that thunderstorm complex that developed north of Tucson for about 20 minutes. The Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport reported a visibility of 0 miles. I read one article where someone said they literally couldn't see their hands in front of their face. At that airport in Phoenix, they recorded a wind gust of 70 miles per hour just before 6 p.m. as the Haboob moved through, and there were also gusts of 94 miles per hour.
Jill, it was wild. The pictures are wild. We're talking about like 4,000 feet elevation, 94 mile per hour winds. It was about 30 to 40 miles across. And apparently, according to standards, they've tried to actually put like categories on these types of dust storms. This was only category 2 of 5. So it could actually be even larger than what we saw unfold. But for a number of people in the Mo News community I connected with in the past 24 hours, I was like, have you ever been through something like this? They're like, we've been through dust storms, but like this was the largest one I've ever lived through. So even by the standards that we see this time of year, which in the Southwest is monsoon season, typically comes in July and August. There's a massive wind shift. This was much larger than they typically see. But the good news is this came with a lot of moisture, which they definitely need. About 30 to 50% of annual rainfall in Arizona and New Mexico comes from monsoons. In Mexico, actually, they depend on 80% of their rainfall from monsoons. But of course, the downside here to those massive winds is it kicks up all this dust, leading to low visibility, particularly for motorists. So caution, don't try to ever drive through these things. If you see it coming, get to the side of the road, wait it out. Typically, it lasts a few minutes, at most an hour or two, and it comes as just about 600 miles north of Phoenix. The annual Burning Man Festival is taking place. They had a massive dust storm over the weekend as well. So Burning Man can't catch a break the past couple of years. And apparently it led to like some destruction of the various tents people live in Burning Man. We have people in the Mo News community, Jill, who are at Burning Man, including close friend of the podcast, Mike Zusel, who's back at Burning Man this year.
Of course.
So Zusel is back at Burning Man. He's definitely not listening to the podcast because I don't know if he has enough bandwidth, Wi-Fi. He can barely get text messages through over there. But anyway, we're getting various reports.
If he was listening to the podcast, that would be serious commitment at Burning Man.
There's other things to do at Burning Man. I'm told. I have not been, but I'm told there's a lot to do there. And it really runs the gamut, Jill, between appropriate and inappropriate.
I've never been to Burning Man either.
Well, Jill, they have apparently everything from a farmer's market and Philharmonic to an orgy tent. So that's your Burning Man, folks. You can really choose your own adventure over there, I'm told.
I can't top that.
Let's go to On This Day in History here. On this day in 1859, Edwin Drake and the Seneca Oil Company drilled the first commercial oil well in the U.S. It's in Pennsylvania, 1859. Of course, in recent years, the U.S. has now become the world's largest oil producer since 2018. It passed both Saudi Arabia and Russia. And so the U.S. continues to break records. Last year, more than 13 million barrels of production in the U.S. So U.S. Number one in oil production on this day in history in 1859. We opened our first well. On this day in 1964, the film Mary Poppins had its world premiere in LA. This was the tease at the top. It starred a 27-year-old, not so well-known actress named Julie Andrews, who was making her screen debut. Now, Walt Disney had seen her in a performance of Camelot and said, "She is my Mary Poppins. I must have her for Mary Poppins." Well, she was pregnant at the time. Was like, "I'm pregnant. I can't be Mary Poppins." And he's like, "I'm going to delay the film to let you give birth and then come back and shoot the movie." And so that's what happened. And so that's what gave us, I can't imagine anyone else as Mary Poppins, Jill. At Walt Disney, he had an eye for talent.
He knew what he was doing.
All right, to some political news. On this day in 2008, Barack Obama was officially nominated for president to be the Democratic nominee in Denver at that massive convention, speaking at a football field with tens of thousands of people, becoming the first Black presidential nominee for a major political party in American history. Of course, that guy Obama would go on to win a couple of elections there and be president for 8 years.
He was going places.
He was going places no matter what Hillary Clinton said. She's like, "It's not your turn." He's like, "Yes, it is." And, well, it was history. And we end here with a bit of music news. This week in 2001, Shakira begins to break records with her release of Whenever, Wherever. Jill, she has a fun social media account where if people who like do impressions of her, she will like react to them. So Shakira is still having fun out there. You might have gotten the reel or TikTok recently of a woman who does a perfect Shakira ordering pizza as Shakira, like with Shakira's voice. And the pizza guy's like, "Oh my God, is this Shakira singing like your pizza order?" And the impressionist is like, "Yes." And then anyway, you have Shakira recently caught that on social media and reacted to it. I'll spare you my impression of Shakira. That's just a level of operatic voice that I don't have.
Oh, no kidding. I don't think anyone was waiting. All right, you're welcome, everybody, for sparing you from Moshe's Shakira impression. Thank you for listening to the Mo News Podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It helps us grow. Follow us, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store.
See you guys back here tomorrow.
And you listen to Mo News in the app.
And the University of South Carolina. Mm-hmm.
Jill, this is like the fourth time I've heard this story today, so that's why I was kind of like, I wonder what's going on Instagram.
Who's talking about Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce?
I'm seeing how well our clips are doing on Instagram. I'm sorry, I'll let you get back to the story.
No, I'm done. It's your turn.
Oh, is it my turn?